Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the real United States. I'm your host Paul Campbell. Behind the camera as always is my wife and our camera operator Beverly Campbell, and welcome to the Straits of Mackinac. Behind me you'll see the Mackinac Bridge. Now the Mackinac Bridge connects the lower and upper peninsulas of the state of Michigan. Michigan is unique among the states in that it is the only state consisting of two separate peninsulas. This bridge was built in 1957, so a reasonably recent addition to the state, and it spans 8,614 feet. I'll put a conversion to meters in the description here. And it was built for a cost at the time of $99.8 million. Now this is something that had been in discussion and development for many years, perhaps decades, prior to its actual construction. But this was a very important bridge, a very important artery, because it's several hundred miles to go down around Lake Michigan and up through Wisconsin to get up to the Upper Peninsula, unless you cross by boat. Now technically, though we are on the shores of the Straits of Mackinac, everything on this side of the bridge would essentially be considered part of Lake Huron, and the bridge is the center of the straits, marks the dividing point. Everything on the other side of the bridge would be Lake Michigan. Beautiful sunny day. We got really lucky on the light today. There is construction on the bridge. We're going to cross it. We're going to try and get you some rolling footage from the bridge as we roll across. Okay, so we've come around onto the north side of the bridge. We've come over the bridge, across the Straits of Mackinac, and we're now looking south towards the lower peninsula. Now, interesting thing about Big Mac is it's the 5th largest suspension bridge in the world, and it is in fact the longest suspension bridge in the Western Hemisphere, or at least so I'm told. Now, I understand that when this bridge was built, there was something on the order of about 5 deaths in the process. Always something that you encounter when you look up the history of bridge construction, especially in the early part of the 20th century, that there were lives lost, and it's a sad thing. But given the massive scale of this project and the massive expanse of water that they had to cover, it's actually surprising that there were not more accidents. It's a very treacherous body of water, and it really gets very windy through here. So that's what makes this such an unusual thing, why this suspension bridge is unique in the Western Hemisphere. It's very difficult to build suspension bridges of this length and have them remain stable. And it's interesting, when you come over the bridge, when we drove over the bridge, you can actually feel some motion of the road, of the bridge under you. I don't know if it's psychological, if it's all in my head, but you definitely feel a small amount of additional motion besides just the normal vibration or motion of the vehicle, that you actually feel like the whole thing, just ever so slightly, is swaying under you. And there obviously is some motion in this. If it was rigid, it wouldn't stand, it would collapse. Bridges are meant to have some flexibility in them. So It is a massive, massive structure. As you saw in some of the footage as we were coming over the bridge, that those towers, when you get up close to them, are just gargantuan. But a beautiful, peaceful day here on the north shore of Lake Huron, in this case, because we are still on the eastern side of the bridge. And we're just a few miles from Mackinac Island. Now, Mackinac Island is a state park or a federal park. I don't recall which. And there's no motorized traffic permitted on the island, with the possible exception of emergency vehicles. I think there are a couple of emergency vehicles, such as an ambulance or a police vehicle. And there's also a fire truck on the island, but that's it. Everything else is people either walk or they ride in horse-drawn trams, horse-drawn carriages, horseback, bicycles, those sorts of things, but there's no motorized traffic. And so it's a sort of a very 19th century kind of a feel about it that they've tried to maintain over there. We aren't going to be able to go over to the island on this particular trip. Hopefully we'll get you over there sometime later in the summer and show you around Mackinac Island. There are several islands just to the east of the Mackinac Bridge here. Round Island, Drummond Island, all which are inhabited. People do live on these islands. Obviously, they have to get to the islands by boat. There's no bridges to these, so I don't really know how they go about doing that, except owning their own boats, because at least for Round Island, there is no ferry service. On Drummond Island, I believe there is ferry service. So it's really a beautiful part of the world. There's a beautiful, very picturesque and often photographed lighthouse just outside of the entrance to the marina for Mackinac Island. And of course, there's a lighthouse right by the bridge on the lower peninsula side, on the northern shore of the lower peninsula, or the southern shore of the Straits, however you want to look at it. So we'd like to thank you for joining us here on the Real United States for this episode on the Mackinac Bridge, or Big Mac as it's called, in the Straits of Mackinac. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We hope you'll pick subscribe and join us for future episodes. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below. I love hearing from all of you. I try to get back to everybody as soon as I possibly can. If you could share this episode with your friends and family, we'd appreciate that. That helps us out a lot. And as always, thank you for watching.